Get your hands off me! I didn't steal anything!" The scream cut through the sweltering Chicago afternoon like a siren. Dozens of heads turned in the Oakwood Mall parking lot just in time to see a black teenager slammed face first onto the scorching asphalt by a white police officer, his body twisted in agony, his shoulder cracking against the pavement. That boy was 17-year-old Elijah Harris, a straight-A student, Harvard-bound, captain of his high school basketball team, and in less than 30 seconds, his life was about to change forever. Before we dive into this story, take a moment, wherever you're watching from, to subscribe to the channel, tap that like button, and stay with us till the end, because what happens next will leave you speechless. It all started as a perfect Saturday afternoon. Elijah had just finished his morning game, grinning as he stepped into the mall with his gym bag slung across his shoulder. The summer heat pressed down hard, but nothing could dim his joy. He'd promised his little brother, Caleb, a new hoodie after the win, and now he was here to keep that promise, inside fashion forward. He smiled at the clerk, a kind woman named Sarah Jenkins. "This one," he said, holding up a gray hoodie. "My brother's gonna go crazy when he sees this." Sarah rang it up. $52.37. Elijah slid his Chase Sapphire card across the counter, the same card his father had given him the day Harvard's acceptance letter arrived. "You're a good brother," Sarah said warmly. "He's lucky." Elijah chuckled. "Nah, I'm the lucky one." Moments later, he walked out of the store, bag in hand, never imagining that 50 feet away. Another story was unfolding, one that would rewrite his future. Inside Tech Zone. A nervous security guard named Jason Patel fumbled his radio. A petty thief, a young Hispanic man in a blue jacket, had just swiped 3 iPhones and sprinted out the east exit, under pressure to meet arrest quotas. Jason panicked. "Suspect is a black male, mid-teens, gray hoodie, backpack, fleeing east," he blurted. He knew the description was wrong, but in that instant, his fear of losing his job outweighed his integrity. Outside, Officer Ryan Caldwell, sitting in his patrol car, heard the call. The words "black male suspect" hit him like gasoline to an open flame. Caldwell's jaw clenched. 28 years earlier, when he was 10, he'd watched his father, a small-town cop, get gunned down by a black drug dealer during a raid. That trauma had never healed. It had festered, mutating into something dark, something he called instinct, but was really prejudice dressed as duty. "Not again," he muttered, slamming his foot on the accelerator. At that very moment, Elijah stepped into the glaring sun, digging for his car keys. His phone buzzed, a text from his father, Victor Harris. "Stay vigilant, son, love, Dad." He smiled softly. His father, the Midwest Regional Director of the FBI, always said those words whenever Elijah went out. "You can never be too careful. Son, the world won't always see you for who you are." Elijah had heard that talk 100 times, but he never imagined he'd need it today. Tires screeched behind him. "Hands up, now!" Officer Caldwell leapt from his car, gun drawn. Elijah froze, the sudden shift from calm to chaos leaving him breathless. "Sir, I think you've got the wrong." He couldn't finish. Caldwell slammed him against the side of his Jeep. Elijah's shoulder exploded in pain. The same one he'd injured years ago during a basketball game. The officer shouted. "You think you can just walk away after stealing?" Elijah's voice trembled. "I bought this! Look, receipt's in the bag!" Caldwell ripped it from his hand, tossing it onto the ground. The gray hoodie splashed into an oil puddle, soaking instantly. The officer's boot came down hard on the paper receipt, tearing it in half. "You kids think you're special," he snarled. "Harvard, huh? Maybe you fooled them, but not me." Around them, a crowd gathered, 30, maybe 40 people. Phones rose in trembling hands. Sarah Jenkins, the store clerk, burst through the doors shouting, "Stop! I sold it to him! I have the register log!" Caldwell turned, eyes blazing. "Back off! Ma'am, or you'll be in cuffs too!" The woman froze, her voice breaking. "He's just a kid." From a few yards away, a young freelance journalist named Mia Thompson pulled out her phone and went live on TikTok. Within seconds, hundreds of viewers were watching. Elijah's face pressed against the pavement, sweat and blood mixing under his cheek. He whispered, "Officer, please, I can't move my arm." Caldwell ignored him. "You can move your mouth just fine." He drove a knee into Elijah's back. The boy gasped. "I can't breathe," Caldwell barked. "Then stop resisting." His partner, Officer Alex Ramirez, stood nearby, uneasily shifting. "Ryan, maybe we should check the bag." "Quiet!" Caldwell snapped. "He fits the description. So does half this city," Alex muttered under his breath. The words didn't reach Ryan. He was lost in a storm of memory. Flashes of his father's blood, the suspect's dark hands, the echo of a gunshot. Not this time. He growled, "Not again." Elijah's smartwatch, crushed against the pavement, flickered faintly, recording everything. His pulse raced, his breathing shallow. The metal cuffs bit into his wrists. Around them, voices shouted, "That's enough! He's innocent! Get off him!" A woman screamed, "You're killing him!" But Ryan didn't stop. He pressed harder, the heat from the asphalt burning through Elijah's clothes. The smell of oil, sweat, and fear filled the air. Then, suddenly, a faint click. The watch's SOS feature activated, sending a live location alert to Victor Harris's phone, inside his FBI Chicago office. Victor looked down at the notification. Heart rate, 172 beats per minute. Location, Oakwood Mall police detention. His chest tightened. He dialed Elijah's phone. No answer. Then he saw it. The name Ryan Caldwell flashing in the background of a local live stream on his monitor. His blood ran cold, back at the scene. Caldwell yanked Elijah up, dragging him toward the patrol car. The boy's shoulder hung limp, his body trembling. "You're under arrest for theft," Caldwell barked. Elijah's voice cracked. "I didn't steal anything." The crowd roared. "Phones capturing every word," one woman shouted. "He's got a Harvard letter in his bag," Caldwell sneered. "Yeah, maybe he printed it himself." The door slammed shut behind Elijah, inside the car. He looked out through blurry eyes. The crowd's faces melted into one blur of fear and disbelief. His father's words echoed in his head. "Stay vigilant, son." He never thought vigilance would mean surviving the very people sworn to protect him. Mia's live stream hit 12,000 views within minutes, comments flooding in. "He's innocent. Call the FBI. This is Oakwood all over again." But the truth was, no one watching could have guessed who that boy really was. And in less than an hour, the entire nation would know his name. The sound of handcuffs clinking against metal echoed through the sweltering air as Officer Ryan Caldwell yanked Elijah Harris from the patrol car. The boy winced in pain, his shoulder throbbing so intensely he could barely stand. "Move it!" Caldwell barked. Elijah staggered forward, his wrist bones grinding against the cuffs. Around them, the crowd's outrage grew louder, voices trembling with disbelief and anger. "He didn't do anything. Check the damn receipt." But Caldwell's ears had gone deaf to reason, to him. Every shout sounded like defiance, every plea like a challenge. He shoved Elijah harder. "You people always play the victim," he spat. "Always someone else's fault." Elijah tried to speak, his voice shaking. "Sir, please. I bought that hoodie for my brother. The lady inside, she can vouch for me." Caldwell's expression hardened. "Save it." He grabbed Elijah by the collar, his grip pressing into the injured shoulder. The boy cried out. A flash of raw pain crossed his face. But Caldwell didn't stop. He wanted control, to prove something, to himself, to the ghost of his father still haunting him after all these years. "On your knees!" he shouted. Elijah dropped instantly, heart pounding, trying not to resist, trying not to die. "Please, officer, I can't move my left arm," he whispered. "My shoulder, it's dislocated." Caldwell knelt beside him, voice dripping with venom. "Then maybe next time you'll think before stealing." Genius. He ripped open Elijah's backpack, spilling textbooks and papers across the pavement. A Harvard acceptance letter fluttered free, the emblem catching sunlight before falling into a small puddle. Caldwell's boot came down on it without hesitation. "Affirmative action trash," he muttered under his breath. The crowd gasped. Someone shouted. "You can't say that!" a woman screamed. "He's a child!" Sarah Jenkins, the store clerk, ran forward again, waving the receipt in her trembling hand. "Officer, please, I just rang him up. He paid in full. Look at this." She held out the slip like a lifeline, but Caldwell turned on her with cold fury. "Back away. Ma'am, before I add obstruction to your record." His hand hovered over his holster. Sarah froze, tears forming in her eyes. "You're making a terrible mistake," she whispered. "You'll ruin him." He ruined himself. Caldwell snapped. His partner, Officer Alex Ramirez, stood nearby, his face tight with conflict. He had joined the force to make things better, to build bridges, not burn them. Watching Ryan lose control sent a chill through him. "Sarge," he murmured into his radio. "Maybe we should double-check." "Do as you're told," Ryan growled. "We have our guy." Alex hesitated, glancing at Elijah, who was lying motionless on the ground, chest rising shallowly. "He's hurt," Alex said. "You've done enough. He's fine," Ryan barked. "They all fake it when they're caught." Then something shifted. The crowd began chanting, voices merging into a single, furious wave. "Let him go! Let him go!" Phones pointed from every direction. Elijah's Apple Watch blinked faintly from under his wrist, still recording. Each movement captured sound, each gasp immortalized. The red recording light reflected in the lenses of 30 phones now live streaming to the world. Elijah coughed, voice barely audible. "Please, my dad, he's FBI." Ryan laughed cruelly. "Sure he is, kid, and I'm the president." He reached down, twisting Elijah's wrists tighter, ignoring the small popping sound from his shoulder joint. "Now, stop squirming or I'll add resisting arrest." Elijah's breath came ragged. He stared at the side of a patrol car door, its reflection distorted but clear enough to see his own frightened eyes staring back. "I didn't do anything," he whispered. From behind, Mia Thompson's live stream exploded. "We're live at Oakwood Mall," she narrated breathlessly, "a young black teen being violently arrested. He says he's innocent. The officer just stomped on his Harvard letter. Within minutes, thousands tuned in. Comments poured across the screen. Call his parents. This is racism. Plain and simple. Where's the proof? Hashtag justice for Elijah now trending." Officer Ramirez shifted again. "Ryan, this is bad. There are cameras everywhere. They can film all they want." Caldwell snapped. "The report will say he resisted. End of story." Alex swallowed hard, voice trembling. "You're crossing a line." Caldwell's eyes flashed. "You think I don't know what I'm doing?" He shoved Elijah into the car, slamming the door. The sound echoed like a gunshot. Elijah flinched, his vision blurring from pain. Ramirez took a step back. The disgust in his eyes didn't go unnoticed by the crowd. But before he could say another word, Sergeant Lisa Moreno's cruiser pulled up. She stepped out, calm but sharp-eyed. "What's going on here?" she demanded. Caldwell straightened. "Caught the thief from Tech Zone. Sarge. Matches description." "What description?" she asked flatly. Caldwell handed her his phone. She scanned the note. Black male teen, gray hoodie, backpack, her brows furrowed. "That's it?" "That's what came through dispatch," he said defensively. He had the hoodie, the bag. She looked down at the items scattered on the ground. Textbooks, a letter with Harvard's seal, a credit card receipt, a puddle of blood near where Elijah's face had hit the asphalt. Lisa's stomach twisted. "Did you verify with the store?" she asked sharply. The clerk tried. Alex cut in. He wouldn't listen. Caldwell glared at him. "Watch your mouth!" Lisa crouched beside Elijah. "Son, can you hear me?" He nodded weakly, tears streaking his dust-covered face. "I didn't do anything. Please, my shoulder's broken." Lisa's voice softened. "We'll get you checked." Then she looked at Ryan. "Bring him in, and for your sake. Caldwell, I hope you're right about this." The ride to the Oakwood Police Department felt endless. The air conditioner in the squad car blasted cold, but Elijah's body burned. Every bump sent pain shooting through his arm. Ryan sat in silence, his face hard as stone. He didn't see Elijah as a boy anymore. He saw the ghost of his father's killer, the same skin tone, the same fear, the same imagined guilt in his mind. It was justice repeating itself. But deep down, he knew. The Harvard letter, the receipt, the woman's tears. It all told another story, one he refused to face, outside, in the digital world. Mia's live stream hit 47,000 views. The hashtag Oakwood Mall trended across Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok. People were calling the local news, tagging the mayor's office, even sending messages to the FBI, and in a quiet, high-rise office on the north side of Chicago. Victor Harris's phone buzzed again. His son's smartwatch had gone offline. Its signal last pinged from the Oakwood Police Department. Victor stood abruptly, face drained of color. He didn't need another second of evidence. He'd seen enough in his life to recognize what was happening. His hands trembled, not from fear, but from fury. He picked up his phone and said 5 words that would change everything. All units to Oakwood, now, inside the Oakwood Police Department. The air was thick with tension and the faint hum of fluorescent lights. Elijah Harris sat in a small, glass-walled interrogation room barely 8 feet across, his wrists still cuffed, his left shoulder swollen and pulsing with pain. He stared at the reflection of his own face in the glass, a face he barely recognized, streaked with dried blood and disbelief. He whispered to himself, "This can't be happening." Officer Ryan Caldwell stood on the other side of the door, pacing like a caged animal. His uniform clung to him with sweat, his mind spinning between guilt and justification. He replayed the scene in the parking lot again and again, trying to convince himself he had acted correctly. He matched the description. He muttered, he did. He had to. But deep down, that small voice he'd buried years ago kept whispering the truth. You didn't see a suspect. You saw your fear. In the observation area. Officer Alex Ramirez leaned against the wall, silent. He had seen bias before, subtle glances, careless assumptions, but this was different. This was violence disguised as law. Lisa Moreno entered, holding a report. "Body cam footage?" she asked. Ryan stiffened. "I'm processing it." She narrowed her eyes. "Processing or deleting?" He shot her a glare. "Watch it." "Sergeant," she folded her arms. "Ryan, I've been with this department 20 years. Don't test me. We've had 17 lawsuits for racial profiling since 2020, and I won't let you add another." Ryan's jaw tightened. He fit the call. That's all that matters. "Then why does the store clerk say otherwise?" Lisa countered. "And why is half the city watching a live stream that tells a different story?" Ryan froze. "What live stream?" Lisa tapped her tablet. "The journalist, Mia Thompson. 50,000 people saw you step on a Harvard acceptance letter and call it trash. This is already national news." His heart pounded. "That's out of context." Lisa shook her head. "Context doesn't matter anymore. Optics do." Meanwhile, inside the small interrogation room, Elijah tried to steady his breathing. He thought of his mother's smile, his father's voice, his little brother waiting at home. He needed to stay calm. He flexed his wrist, feeling the faint vibration of his smartwatch still against his skin. Then, remembering something his father once told him, "If you can't speak safely, record silently." He twisted his wrist just enough to activate the emergency SOS again. The watch sent his coordinates, audio, and heartbeat data straight to Victor Harris's phone at the FBI regional office. Victor stood over his desk, eyes fixed on the red blinking alert. His analysts stopped what they were doing as he barked. "Track that signal. Triangulate it through the Oakwood Police Department grid, within seconds." The screen displayed Elijah's location in real time. "My son's inside that building," Victor said quietly, his voice steady but charged with restrained rage. Back at OPD, Ryan stormed into the evidence room, slamming the door behind him. He pulled his body cam from its dock, yanked out the memory card, and shoved it into a computer. "Delete," he hissed, clicking through folders. But the file wouldn't open. Come on," he muttered. He tried again. The system blinked red. Access denied. File locked to cloud sync. Ramirez's voice came from behind him. "Looking for something?" Ryan spun around. Alex stood in the doorway, arms crossed. "Deleting evidence is a felony. You know that." Ryan's face flushed. "You don't understand." "Oh, I understand," Alex interrupted. "I've watched you lose control before. But this is different. He's a kid. Ryan, 17. A thief." Ryan snapped. "A liar! He's an honor student," Alex shouted. "You saw the letter? You saw the receipt." Ryan slammed his fist into the metal table. He fits the face. "Alex! The same face that." He stopped himself, breathing heavily. "That what?" Alex asked quietly. Ryan's voice dropped. "That killed my father." For a long moment, silence filled the room. Ramirez stared at him, stunned. "So every black teenager you see is your father's killer now?" he said softly. "That's not justice. Ryan, that's hate wearing a badge." Ryan turned away, unable to answer, outside. Sergeant Moreno watched through the one-way glass as two younger officers whispered nervously. "They say the FBI director's kid is involved." One said, "Regional director." The other corrected, "Victor Harris himself." Lisa's blood ran cold. "Say that again. The boy's name." "Elijah Harris. His dad's the FBI's Midwest regional director." She didn't hesitate. "Lock down the building. Now. In the interrogation room." Elijah lifted his head as the door creaked open. Ryan entered, eyes dark and sunken. "Still not ready to talk?" he asked. Elijah stared at him silently. "You're making this harder than it needs to be." Ryan continued. "Confess, and I'll get you medical attention." "Confess to what?" Elijah asked softly. "Existing?" Ryan's jaw twitched. "Don't get smart with me." Elijah's calm voice cut through the tension. "You don't want the truth. Officer, you want a target." Ryan slammed his hands on the table. "You think you know me?" "No," Elijah said quietly. "I think you're scared of me, and you don't even know why." For the first time, Ryan hesitated. There was no defiance in Elijah's tone, only clarity. It hit him harder than any accusation. At that moment, a piercing ringtone broke the silence. The department's front desk phone blared. An officer answered, listened for 2 seconds, then stood frozen. "Sergeant Moreno, we've got a call from the FBI Regional Command. They're mobilizing agents. ETA 15 minutes. Lisa's eyes widened. "They're coming here?" "Yes." "Ma'am, full tactical unit, outside the interrogation room." Alex glanced at Ryan. "You're out of time." Ryan felt his chest tighten. "You don't get it. They'll destroy me." "You destroyed yourself," Alex said quietly. "All we can do now is tell the truth." In that instant, the glass door flew open. Sergeant Moreno stepped in, "Caldwell, out! Now! He hasn't! Out!" she barked. He hesitated, then stormed out, slamming the door so hard the glass trembled. Elijah sat still, breathing shallowly, eyes unfocused. The adrenaline was gone, replaced by exhaustion and pain. "Son," Lisa said gently, "you'll get medical attention soon, I promise. Can I call my dad?" Elijah asked. She hesitated, then nodded. "I'll try." Outside. The faint wail of sirens began to rise in the distance. Not police sirens, but something heavier, synchronized, methodical. 10 black SUVs barreled down Oakwood Avenue toward the station. Inside. Victor Harris stood in the lead vehicle. Face set, voice calm over the radio, no weapons drawn unless provoked. "Extract my son alive," the agent beside him replied. "Yes, sir, we're with you. Back inside OPD." Ryan looked up as the sound grew louder, closer. The walls seemed to close in. His mind screamed, "What have I done?" But there was no undoing it now. In 10 minutes, the world he'd built on fear and anger would come crashing down. And in that moment, even he knew, he deserved every second of it. The first SUV screeched to a halt outside the Oakwood Police Department. Tires grinding against the pavement. Doors flew open. 10 FBI agents in full tactical gear, vests labeled FBI in bold white letters, poured out in formation. Their movements were precise, synchronized, terrifyingly professional. Inside. The front desk officer dropped his coffee, watching through the glass as the agents fanned out. Weapons holstered but ready. "What the hell?" he whispered before Agent Megan Foster stormed through the front door, flashing her badge. "Federal operation! Everyone step away from the suspect holding cell now!" The building froze. Sergeant Lisa Moreno stepped forward cautiously, palms raised. "Agent Foster, what's the situation?" "Your department has a 17-year-old in custody under unlawful arrest," Megan replied sharply. "You've got 30 seconds to open that door before we do." Her tone left no room for argument. The squad room buzzed with chaos, phones ringing, officers whispering, the faint hum of tension thick as smoke. Upstairs. Officer Ryan Caldwell looked out from the second-floor window and saw the black SUVs, the federal insignias, and the unmistakable presence of authority that outranked him by miles. His throat went dry. "They're here for me," he muttered. He reached for his locker, pulling out his sidearm and badge, staring at them with trembling hands. His reflection in the metal door looked hollow, older, broken, downstairs. Victor Harris stepped inside the station, calm yet radiating silent power. His black suit clung neatly to his shoulders, his ID hanging from his neck. Federal Bureau of Investigation, Regional Director, Midwest Division. The room went silent as his shoes clicked against the floor. He didn't shout. He didn't threaten. He simply said, "Where is my son?" No one answered. The weight of his voice carried more force than a command. Sergeant Moreno stepped forward hesitantly. "Director Harris." "I didn't know the boy was. His name," Victor cut in, "is Elijah, and you should have known he was human before you needed to know he was mine." The words struck like steel. "Where is he?" Megan pointed down the hallway. "Interrogation room 3. He's injured but conscious." Victor's jaw tightened. "Bring him out." 2 agents moved quickly, unlocking the glass door and lifting Elijah gently from the chair. His arm hung limp, his face pale, eyes glassy. "Dad," he whispered, barely audible. Victor's hand trembled as he touched his son's cheek. "I'm here, son. You're safe now." Elijah's eyes welled. "I didn't do anything. I know," Victor said softly. "I know you didn't." Around them. Silence blanketed the room. Every officer could feel the storm shifting. Victor turned toward Ryan Caldwell, who had just descended the stairs. Pale as a ghost, Megan Foster stepped between them. "Ryan Caldwell," she said coldly, "you're under immediate investigation for assault. evidence tampering, and racial discrimination under federal code. Ryan blinked rapidly, sweat dripping down his temple. Megan, wait, don't Megan me, she snapped. I trained with you. I trusted you. Her voice cracked slightly. What happened to you? Ryan's lips parted, but no words came. Victor stepped closer, his calmness more frightening than fury. You tackled a child over a hoodie, he said quietly. You broke his arm over your pain. You turned your father's death into your excuse to hate. Ryan's eyes filled with tears. You don't understand, he said hoarsely. I watched him die. He was shot by a man who looked just like your son. Every day I see his face when I close my eyes. I thought, you thought killing someone's spirit would resurrect your father? Victor cut him off, his tone razor sharp. That boy you pinned to the ground is everything your fear told you was impossible. Educated, respectful, disciplined, proud. You didn't see a threat, Officer Caldwell. You saw proof that your hatred was built on a lie. The entire station stood frozen. Even the hum of the air conditioner seemed to stop. Megan stepped forward, pulling a flash drive from her pocket. You tried to delete your body cam, she said, her voice steady. But every OPD camera auto-syncs to the cloud now. Your words are already in evidence. She inserted the drive into the station's main monitor. The footage played across every screen in the room. The video showed Ryan shouting, Your type always runs, as Elijah lay face down on the pavement. Then came the stomp, the slap, the mocking laughter. The entire station watched in horror as reality bared its teeth. Elijah looked away, tears falling silently. Victor didn't move. His expression didn't waver. He'd seen injustice before, but never aimed so precisely at his own blood. Megan turned toward Ryan, her face hardening. You'll surrender your badge and weapon. Ryan shook his head, voice trembling. Please, Megan, don't do this. She stepped closer. You did this. She held out her hand. Badge. Gun. Now. Slowly. Ryan unclipped both. The metal clattered onto the table. He stared at his empty hands like they no longer belonged to him. You think this makes you righteous? He whispered. You think humiliating me fixes the system? Victor met his gaze. Justice isn't humiliation. It's accountability. Ryan's knees buckled slightly. He steadied himself on the edge of a desk. You don't know what it's like, he muttered. To wake up every day and see the face of the man who destroyed your life. Victor's eyes softened. Just for a moment. You're right. I don't know your pain. But I do know this. It doesn't give you the right to create more. Ryan's mouth opened, but no sound came. His throat tightened as if the truth itself strangled him. Megan's voice cut through the silence again. You're relieved of duty, effective immediately. You'll be escorted to internal affairs. Ryan turned toward her, his expression breaking. Megan, Stop. Her eyes filled with tears. Just stop. As two agents led him toward the back door, Ryan's steps faltered. Director Harris, he whispered, turning back. For what it's worth. I'm sorry. Victor didn't answer. He simply looked at him and said quietly, Tell that to your own reflection. The sound of handcuffs clicking around Ryan's wrists echoed like a final verdict. Elijah, still trembling, looked up at his father. Dad, is it over? Victor exhaled, his hand resting gently on his son's back. No. Son, it's just beginning. The next moment. Agent Kyle Bennett entered holding Elijah's smartwatch. Director Harris, he said. We recovered this from his wrist. It recorded everything. Video, audio, timestamps. He plugged it into a tablet. The final clip played. Elijah's muffled voice saying, Please. Officer, I didn't steal anything. Followed by Caldwell's words. Your type always causes trouble. Victor nodded once. This stays public, he said firmly. No cover-ups, no spin. Megan glanced at him. You sure? If the truth hurts, Victor replied. Then it means it's finally being heard. The station remained still for a long moment, the weight of the day settling over everyone. Then Victor turned to his son. We're going home. As they walked out. Sunlight hit the doorway, blindingly bright, behind them. Officer Caldwell collapsed into a chair, his badge gone, his life undone by the same bias he once justified, and for the first time in years. The Oakwood Police Department stood in silence, not the silence of order, but the silence that follows when the truth finally walks in. The next morning, the Oakwood Police Department held a mandatory debrief inside its crowded assembly hall. Reporters lined up outside, the building surrounded by flashing cameras and angry chants. Inside, tension simmered like a pressure cooker. At the front of the room stood Victor Harris, his presence commanding yet calm, dressed in his dark gray FBI suit. To his left sat Elijah, his arm in a sling, eyes still swollen from exhaustion. Across the table, Officer Ryan Caldwell sat shackled, flanked by two internal affairs agents. His face was pale, his uniform stripped of its insignia, his badge already sealed in an evidence bag. The air felt thick with guilt, humiliation, and something else. A strange, quiet acceptance that the world was watching. Victor cleared his throat. Before we begin, he said evenly, understand this meeting isn't about vengeance. It's about truth. He looked across the room, eyes sweeping over every officer, every sergeant, every uneasy soul who had turned away yesterday when it mattered. For years, he continued, this department has been plagued by lawsuits, protests, and mistrust. But yesterday wasn't just another bad day. Yesterday was a revelation. You saw what happens when bias becomes blindness. His voice grew quieter, more personal. You saw what happens when an innocent boy becomes a target, not because of what he did, but because of who he is. The room was silent. Officer Caldwell shifted, his cuffed hands trembling. Lisa Moreno stood beside Victor. Reading from a report, evidence from the incident includes body cam footage, live video streamed to 78,000 viewers, verified purchase receipt, and a smartwatch recording with GPS confirmation. The footage shows Officer Caldwell tackling the suspect unprovoked, using excessive force, and making racial remarks. All of this occurred in front of 35 witnesses. Victor nodded toward her. Thank you, Sergeant. Then he turned his attention directly to Ryan. Officer Caldwell, he said, his voice steady but laced with gravity. You asked for this hearing, claiming you had something to say. You may speak. Ryan hesitated, his throat dry. Director Harris, he began slowly. And Elijah. His voice cracked on the name. I've spent 15 years wearing this badge, convincing myself I was protecting people. But yesterday, I saw who I really became, a man hiding behind pain, using a badge to justify it. The room held its breath. I watched my father die when I was 10. The man who killed him was black. I let that one moment define every decision I made after. I told myself I was being cautious, that I was serving justice. But I wasn't. I was serving fear. He looked directly at Elijah. I hurt you because I couldn't tell the difference between danger and color, and there's no excuse for that. Elijah's jaw tightened. His father glanced at him, signaling calm. Do you think sorry fixes it? Elijah asked quietly. You broke more than my shoulder. Officer, you broke trust. The kind people like me have to fight for every day. Ryan's eyes glistened. You're right, he said softly. Nothing I say can undo that, but I'll carry it. Every single day. I'll carry it, Victor interjected, his voice low but sharp. Words are easy. Officer, action defines repentance. He turned to the room. So, here's what's going to happen. There will be a full federal investigation into this department's conduct, including past racial complaints, all 17 of them. Officer Caldwell is terminated effective immediately, with federal charges pending for civil rights violations and obstruction of justice. A murmur rippled through the room. Ryan dropped his head, eyes wet. "I deserve that," he whispered. "But let me say this. I wasn't alone. I may have been the one holding him down. But silence held me up. Every officer who stood there and said nothing helped me do it." The room went still. Several officers shifted uncomfortably. One by one, faces turned downward. Victor let the silence hang heavy before speaking again. "That's what systemic bias looks like. It isn't just one man's hate. It's everyone else's indifference." He gestured toward Elijah. "This young man showed more strength in pain than many of us show in power. While he was face down on the ground, his smartwatch recorded everything, not for revenge, but for truth. And that truth will now shape the law." He turned to Sergeant Moreno. "Effective immediately, the Oakwood PD will establish a civilian oversight board. It will be chaired by Officer Alex Ramirez, who, despite hesitation, tried to intervene. That's what courage looks like. Not perfection, but action when it matters." Alex stood slowly, surprised. "Sir, I don't deserve that. You earned it the moment you said." "Enough," Victor said firmly. "Now use it to make this place better." Across the room, Sarah Jenkins, the store clerk, entered quietly. She held up a folded piece of paper, the torn Harvard acceptance letter, taped back together. She walked to Elijah, placing it gently in front of him. "I kept it," she whispered. It felt wrong to throw away something that means so much. Elijah blinked back tears. "Thank you." Victor turned back to the officers. "You all saw how one false call, one unchecked bias, almost destroyed a life. You saw the crowd. You saw the live stream. The public doesn't just want words anymore. They want accountability." Then he faced Ryan one last time. "You have a choice. Officer Caldwell, you can spend the rest of your life running from what you did, or you can confront it and make it mean something." Ryan's voice was barely audible. "How?" Victor paused. "By teaching others not to become you." Ryan swallowed hard, nodding slowly. "If you'll let me, I'll do it." Victor's eyes softened slightly. "That's not for me to decide. It's for time to prove." He turned toward Elijah. "Son, do you want to say anything?" Elijah took a deep breath. "You saw what happened to me," he said to the room. "But this isn't just my story. It's every kid who ever had to wonder if raising his hands was enough to stay alive. You don't fix that with training videos or slogans. You fix it by listening, by seeing us, not as suspects, but as sons, brothers, students, neighbors." His voice trembled slightly. "You can't heal what you refuse to see." The hall went silent. Some officers looked down in shame, others with reflection. Even Ryan closed his eyes, tears slipping down his cheeks. Victor placed his hand on Elijah's shoulder. "That's enough for today," he said quietly. "The rest will be decided by law." As they turned to leave, Elijah stopped, glancing back at Ryan. "Your pain doesn't justify mine," he said softly. "But maybe your honesty can help someone else not repeat it." Ryan nodded slowly, his voice breaking. "I'll remember that." And for the first time in his life, he meant it. 6 weeks later, Oakwood was a city divided between fury and reckoning. The viral footage of Elijah Harris's arrest had exploded far beyond Illinois, reaching millions across social media and national television. The hashtag Justice for Elijah had surpassed 2.5 million views in less than a week, transforming what began as a local outrage into a nationwide demand for reform. Protesters lined the streets outside Oakwood Police Headquarters, holding signs that read, "Bias is not a badge and let kids breathe." Among them were students, veterans, pastors, and families of past victims of police misconduct. The city could no longer hide behind silence. Inside City Hall, the council chamber overflowed with citizens, reporters, and public officials. Mayor David Kwan stood at the podium, his voice solemn. "We failed this family," he said. "We failed this community. And if we don't change now, we will fail again." Cameras clicked, flashes illuminating Elijah sitting beside his father. His arm was still in a sling, but his composure was unwavering. He'd become the face of resilience, calm, articulate, unwilling to let rage define him. Victor sat quietly beside him, eyes trained on the crowd. He had seen too many hearings filled with empty promises. But this time was different. The people weren't leaving. They demanded justice, effective immediately. Mayor Kwan continued. "Oakwood Police Department will implement a 24-hour automatic body cam upload system. No footage will be deletable, no file hidden. Every minute will sync directly to a federal server under independent review." Applause broke through the room like thunder. Additionally, the mayor went on. "We are establishing a community oversight board chaired by Officer Alex Ramirez. This board will have authority to investigate complaints, enforce disciplinary action, and ensure transparency." The camera panned to Alex, who stood in his crisp new uniform, looking both proud and burdened. He glanced at Elijah and nodded once, a silent promise that this wouldn't be symbolic. Outside, the protests grew louder, but they were no longer fueled only by anger. There was hope now, fragile but real. A change had begun. Meanwhile, Ryan Caldwell's life had unraveled completely. The federal civil rights lawsuit filed by the Harris family had reached court within days. Video evidence and witness testimony made the verdict swift. Guilty of assault, misconduct, and civil rights violations. The civil judgment, $4.2 million in damages. Caldwell's home went up for sale within a week, his pension frozen, his savings drained. His wife, Rachel, filed for divorce and left with their 2 children. Unable to bear the glare of reporters or the whispers at school, Ryan moved into a small apartment on the edge of town. Blinds closed, bottles lining the counter. His name was on every news feed. His face, once hidden behind authority, now symbolized disgrace for a time. He disappeared. Neighbors said they heard shouting, breaking glass, and once, the sound of sirens in the night. Twice. He was found unconscious, saved only because someone called in a welfare check. The irony was cruel. A man who once carried a gun now couldn't be trusted with a bottle of pills. But the world kept moving. Elijah's story became a rallying point across the country. 27 malls nationwide adopted what became known as the Harris Protocol, a mandatory cross-verification policy to prevent racial profiling during theft reports. Every security guard, every dispatcher, every police unit had to confirm suspect details through video evidence before any physical engagement. National retailers joined in, pledging to retrain employees on implicit bias and accountability. What started with pain had ignited reform. In the following weeks, Elijah appeared on news panels, school assemblies, and podcasts. His voice carried both sorrow and strength. "Justice isn't about punishing one man," he said during a televised interview. "It's about fixing the system that let him think he was right." The clip went viral, earning praise from civil rights leaders across the nation. At home, Victor watched his son with quiet pride. He'd spent a lifetime fighting these battles from behind a desk, through data and investigations. But Elijah had done it differently, through courage, vulnerability, and truth. "You did what I couldn't," Victor said one evening. Elijah smiled faintly. "You gave me the strength to..." Across the city, Officer Alex Ramirez chaired the first oversight meeting with a diverse board of citizens, clergy, and community advocates. They reviewed 30 open complaints, suspending 5 officers pending investigation. It was a small start, but a start nonetheless. "We'll do this the right way," Alex told the board. "We're not here to destroy the department. We're here to rebuild it." Sergeant Lisa Moreno, promoted to deputy chief, stood beside him, adding quietly, "Justice and trust are earned. Let's start earning them." On social media, the movement only grew stronger. Hashtags shifted from Justice for Elijah to Reform with Elijah, representing the new wave of activism centered on empathy and accountability. Teens wore shirts with his Harvard logo beneath the words "future," not threat. His name had become a message of hope, not just for black youth, but for anyone who had ever been misjudged, yet amid the national attention. Victor reminded his son to stay grounded. Fame fades, but principle endures. He told him. Elijah nodded. "Then let's make sure the principle outlives the story." On a quiet Sunday, 6 weeks after the incident, a candlelight vigil was held outside Oakwood Mall. Hundreds gathered, white, black, Hispanic, Asian, standing shoulder to shoulder. Sarah Jenkins, the store clerk who had stood up for Elijah that day, lit the first candle for truth, she said softly. Jason Patel, the security guard whose panic had started it all, lit the second. His voice cracked as he whispered, "For accountability." Victor lit the third, for change, and Elijah, his sling finally removed, held the last candle high, "For forgiveness." He said. The crowd went silent, the flickering lights reflecting off tearful faces, not the kind that excuses. Elijah continued, but the kind that frees. Ryan Caldwell watched the vigil from his dark apartment window miles away, TV glowing dimly in the background. His eyes lingered on Elijah's image, the same boy he'd once called a suspect, now leading a city toward healing, for the first time in months. Ryan picked up the phone. The number he dialed wasn't for his lawyer or his therapist. It was for a rehabilitation center. "I need help," he said quietly. "I don't want to live like this anymore." The voice on the other end didn't ask who he was. It simply said, "Come in tomorrow. We'll start there." And as he hung up, for the first time, Ryan felt something close to peace. Not redemption yet, but the beginning of it. Back in Oakwood. The night ended with a simple chant rising through the air. "We see you, Elijah. We hear you. We stand with you." And for the first time in the city's troubled history, those words felt true. 4 months later. Autumn settled quietly over Oakwood. The protests had faded, but the change they sparked continued to ripple through every corner of the city. The Oakwood Police Department now wore body cameras that uploaded footage automatically to federal servers every hour. The Community Oversight Board met weekly, and civilian volunteers now walked side by side with officers on patrols. The wounds hadn't vanished, but they had begun to heal. Slowly, honestly, in Cambridge, Massachusetts. A cool breeze drifted through the window of a Harvard dorm room, carrying the scent of wet leaves. Elijah Harris sat at his desk, typing his first college essay since the summer. His shoulder was nearly healed, though it still ached during long nights. A small photo of his family sat beside his laptop. His father, Victor, his little brother, Caleb, and a younger version of himself holding that same gray hoodie that had once started it all. His phone buzzed. It was a video call request from Chicago. When he answered, the familiar face of Alex Ramirez appeared, smiling faintly. "Hey, Harvard boy," Alex said. "The city misses you." Elijah chuckled softly. "I miss it too. How's the board holding up?" Alex exhaled. "Better than I expected." We've dismissed 2 corrupt officers, reinstated trust with a few others, and we're starting youth outreach next month. We're calling it the Harris Initiative." Elijah smiled, humbled. "You didn't have to name it after me. You earned it," Alex said. "Your story forced all of us to look in the mirror." Elijah thanked him and ended the call. A knock sounded at his door. His father stepped in, wearing his FBI jacket, a rare visit between assignments. "Room looks good," Victor said, smiling as he looked around. "Cleaner than mine was at your age." Elijah grinned. "That's because Mom's ghost is probably still inspecting it." They laughed quietly, then sat side by side. After a moment, Victor said softly, "You did something incredible, son. You turned pain into progress. Not many can do that." Elijah looked at him. "You did it too, Dad, just in your own way." Victor nodded. "Maybe. But I fought from within the system. You changed it from outside." His voice softened. "That's harder." A long silence followed, the kind that carried peace, not tension. Finally, Victor stood. "I have a meeting in D.C., he said. "But before I go, there's someone I think you should see." Elijah frowned. "Who?" Victor hesitated. "He's here in Boston, been volunteering at a police training seminar." Hours later, in a quiet community center on the city's south side, Elijah walked into a modest lecture hall filled with young police cadets. At the front stood Ryan Caldwell, thinner, sober, humbled. His once proud posture was replaced with quiet humility. A banner behind him read, "Bias and Accountability, Lessons from Failure." He glanced up as Elijah entered. Their eyes met for the first time since that day. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Ryan dismissed the class and approached him slowly. "I wasn't sure you'd come," he said. Elijah folded his arms. "I wasn't sure either." Ryan nodded, looking older, wearier. "I wanted to thank you," he said quietly, "for not hating me. You had every right to." Elijah's tone was calm but firm. "I did hate you. For a while. But hating you didn't heal anything." Ryan swallowed hard. "I can't undo what I did. I can't take back the fear I put in you." "No," Elijah said. "But you can make sure no one else goes through it." Ryan nodded slowly. "That's what I'm trying to do. I've been speaking at academies across Illinois, telling young recruits about bias, about humanity, about the danger of letting fear become policy. It doesn't erase my guilt, but it gives it purpose." He took a deep breath. "I owe you that." Elijah studied him for a long moment. The man before him wasn't the same officer who had slammed him to the ground. The arrogance was gone. Only remorse remained. "Then keep doing it," Elijah said softly. "Because forgiveness means nothing if it stops with words." Ryan's eyes glistened. "I will." They shook hands, not as enemies, not even as equals, but as 2 men carrying the weight of the same truth. Outside, Victor waited by the car, watching from a distance, when Elijah stepped out. His father smiled faintly. "How did it feel?" Elijah thought for a moment. "Like closing a book I never wanted to open." He said, "But it's closed now." Victor placed a hand on his son's shoulder. "Then let's start the next chapter." Months later, a documentary titled Oakwood Reckoning premiered on Netflix, reaching 18 million viewers in its first week. It ended with Elijah's voice narrating, "One viral moment changed a city, reformed a department, and saved a life. Not just mine, but his. Because sometimes justice isn't about punishment, it's about transformation." The screen faded to black as real footage of Elijah's TEDx talk appeared, his calm voice saying, "You can't heal what you refuse to face, but once you do, even the darkest truth can lead to light, and in that light, Oakwood finally began to see. Thank you so much for watching this story. If it moved you, Please take a moment to subscribe, like, and share it with someone who believes in justice and change.